Because at the end of the day, to boil it down to one point, it means that we have to learn to develop this inner strength, to swim a little bit against the mainstream and be okay with it. And the challenge for this is that you were saying a moment ago something like we cannot look into the heart of people. I don't subscribe to this. I think at the end of the day, we are all looking for the same thing, which is love. To be loved, ideally, like we hopefully have been loved by our mothers, which would be unconditional love. But the thing is following, every once a year on the 14th of February at the Valentine's Day, I'm always doing an anti-Valentine's Day event, and it's always fully packed. And there are always people who come and say to me, Dieter, I don't find anyone who loves me. And then I'm always asking them, do you love yourself? And in 99% of the cases, the answer is silence, not even no, silence. And then I'm saying, how can you expect that someone is loving you if you don't even love yourself? Now, what does it mean for what you just were saying? We have to learn, in my philosophy, we have to learn to give as much as love, or whatever you want to call it, to ourselves, and to become less dependent on getting it from the outside world. We all need love at the end of the day. We all need love, but we try to compensate it with relationships, with material stuff, with the car, with the house, with success. This is why I don't like the term success. Because it's material. We have to learn to give it as much as possible to ourselves. And again, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier than we are made believe. It's just we never learned it. So the process is to help people to see, not only to see, to on a daily basis, so to speak, to give validation, recognition, love, whatever term you want to use, for themselves as much as possible. And therefore, they develop inner peace, inner calm, inner strength, and therefore they are better prepared to deal with whatever the universe is putting on our doorsteps, and also to be able to say, okay, I have to swim a little bit against mainstream, but I'm fine.
And that's the challenge. Sometimes, at least, I'm looking at from my own perspective, from my clients' perspective as well, from my client experiences. I'm sorry, not perspective, clients' experiences. For them, and for me, sometimes I still find it sometimes challenging. Again, like I said, I need to remind myself that it's okay. Like, and how would you like that? It's okay, but how can we maintain that it's okay feeling?
Okay, in the smallest possible ways. Again, let me give you the personal example with kindness. For instance, especially if I do something with groups, I'm always asking people, how many of you or who of you is brushing his or her teeth at least once a day? And of course, all the hands go up. And then I'm asking, how many of you are brushing his or her soul at least once a day? And very often, some people even ask, what do you mean? And I'm saying, as we're automatically, more or less, once or twice a day are brushing our teeth, we have to brush our soul. And what does it mean? Every day, ideally. And what does it mean? It means, for instance, for me, I sit down in the evening, and it's not meditation necessarily. It's just 2 minutes sitting down, either in complete silence, letting everything sink in. And this is already very difficult for most people, even 1 minute of silence. Or sometimes I'm just thinking back, where have I been kind today? And then pat my shoulder and create this feeling, well done. I'm proud of you, Dieter. It's the smallest things. Again, we are made believe it must be something big. No, I don't subscribe to this. It's the small things. But the thing is, we have to take the time, not find the time, because we'll never find it. We have to take the time to reflect, to slow down, silence, or just reviewing the day and saying, because let's face it, usually during the day we have so many difficult things, and there's always saying we usually only see the holes in the cheese and we don't see the cheese. We only see what went wrong, we don't see what is nice. So slow down, sit down, reflect, and see, well, not so bad, not so bad. And it's the tiny things, it's the tiny little things, and they will add up so quickly if we are only aware of it. Again, this is not what mainstream is telling us. We are told if there is an issue, plan and go from A to B and work hard. No, easy.
This goes back to meaning again.
Mm-hmm.
I personally believe that we human being, and I read this somewhere, like this term that I really like, human beings is, we are a meaning-making machine. We always, whether consciously or subconsciously, we always give meaning to whatever, from moment to moment, to what's happening in our life. But is there a difference between giving meaning to a particular moment, to an event that happened, and having a meaningful life? Do you see those as two different things, or are they connected in one way or another?
Well, they're in my opinion, definitely connected to one another. I'm not so sure. I have to think about this. If there's a different, I mean, if they're connected, they might be slightly different. But for me, for instance, you might say what's bubbling up now emotionally. I have the big picture, which is, for instance, to be kind, in the moment, to learn to be more aware of the moment. Now, because very often we don't see the things where I could be kind, for instance. I mean, the classical examples are if I want to buy a specific car and all of a sudden I see only this type of car on the streets. They always have been there, but my awareness wasn't there. Or women, when they become pregnant, all of a sudden we only see pregnant women around us. It's always there. So for me, it is to develop this awareness, because from a spiritual philosophical perspective, I really believe that everything is a message. Everything is a message. There are no coincidences and everything. We just don't see it. So the short term, the long term might be, for me, being kind, and then helping people to find their purpose. The immediate in the moment is to be, as I was saying earlier, to be as much in the moment, to be aware as much as possible, without judging of this very moment. So it's connected. It's not necessarily the same, to answer your question.
And so how would you define a meaningful life from your perspective?
Okay. I was saying earlier that it takes 5 to 10 minutes to answer the question of your meaning. And it's basically one question you have to answer. And I'll give you the question because this is the answer to your question now as well. The question is the following. And there are two versions, by the way. I have to mention this as well. There's the old version and there's the new version. The old version is known as the tombstone question, which is one day when you're dead, what do you want that is written on your tombstone? What have you achieved to say it has been a successful life? I don't subscribe to this. For me, the simple question to answer and also to come to your question is, one day when you will be looking back in your life, what feelings will you have to say, yes, it has been a fulfilled life? What feelings will you have to say, yes, it has been a fulfilled life? It's nothing about success in the outside world. It's nothing about achievement in my philosophy. Yeah? So this is the feelings. And for a lot of us, and especially men, it's difficult to listen to our feelings, because in most cultures, especially in the European culture, we are told a boy doesn't cry, for instance. So it's difficult for men. But this is the point. Listen to your feelings. There was a beautiful advertising in Spain for many years for a German car company, which was, be reasonable, follow your feelings. Which Yeah, which sounds like a contradiction, but that's the point. So again, to come to your question, what feelings do you want to have to say it has been a fulfilling, not successful, a fulfilling life? This is the criteria. For me, as I was saying a number of times now, it is inner peace, it's inner calm, inner strength. But everyone has to find his or her own version.